Good afternoon, Team Alabama. Welcome back to Mrs. Dishman's English class. We are on Chapter 7 of Stuck in Neutral. Remember that in Stuck in Neutral, each chapter begins with Dad's poem. And so we're going to start with that. That is Chapter 7, and that is page 38. Sean does not grow. He stays the same. His arms and legs are like overcooked spaghetti, laced with the bones of dead birds. Behind his eyes, it's blank as fog over snow. School, the retards class. Geez, what a freaking zoo. The severely, profoundly handicapped special education program at Shoreline is an amazing piece of work. There are only 7 of us kids in the room, along with our teacher, Mrs. Hare, and 2 teachers' assistants, Becky and William. William is this incredibly cruel, vicious psychopath with huge, hairy arms who tortures us and does terrible things to us whenever we're alone with him. Did that get your attention? I'm just messing with you. So that wasn't true. Okay, there were some good facts that he mentioned just then. Could we add the Mrs. Hare is the teacher, and Becky and William are the teacher's assistants in Sean's classroom. We can also add the name of the school if you want to add that as a fact. So those are several of the things that we know. Page 39. Actually, William is an incredibly nice guy. He's about 50 and real strong and big. He's great. Once William accidentally broke my arm when I was falling out of my wheelchair. He grabbed me as I was nosediving towards the hard tile floor. He didn't want me to crack my skull, so he grabbed me, catching my arm at the wrong angle. I was in the middle of a seizure when it happened, but I came back into my body pretty fast when the bone snapped. Of course, there was a big deal incident report, and William had to answer a lot of questions. But he never treated me any differently than he always had. He was just as nice as always. He's not afraid of us, blank. Becky is great too. She has red hair, long and soft. She's only about 20 years old, and her body's gorgeous, and she's super nice. I love it when Becky works with me, especially when she wears a low-cut top and has to bend over to load and unload me from this special standing contraption that they put me in a couple of hours every day. Okay, we're going to add a few vocab words. We're going to add the word contraption on page 39. And then there was another word over on page 38, psychopath. And those are words you can add and look up. Add those to your vocab. If there's anything else that you want to add ever, you can always add something that I don't point out. If it's a word you don't know that you want to know, just go ahead and add it. Okay, so back to reading. On page 39, her blank are perfect, round, smooth, and big. If I could be William, I'd spend every hour of every workday trying to figure out how to score with Becky. Heck, I'm me, and I do that already, but you'd have to figure William would at least have a chance. I mean, he speaks the same language as Becky and can walk around and smile and do all the necessary prerequisites to scoring. Okay, prerequisites might be a word you want to add to your vocab as well. You'd figure that the guy would have at least a chance, but I've never seen anything sexy or weird ever going back and forth between them. For some reason, that makes me like William even more. Mrs. Hare is an older teacher lady. Little reading glasses hanging on the end of her nose. She always looks like she just got back from a walk on a windy day. She's nice and patient, a little boring, but really caring. And I don't like her quite as much as I like William and Becky, but she does a good job of running the show, and what a show it is. Okay, so there are some facts that we can add. How does Sean feel about William and Becky? Does he like them? And then how does he feel about his teacher? Or Mrs. Hare is his teacher, and William and Becky are assistants. Page 40. I'm making this all sound normal and sane. Mrs. Hare and William and Becky are fine, but that's where normalcy and sanity ends. The zoo is not like any other schoolroom that you've ever seen. Although we're located at Shoreline High School, we're not really a part of it. Okay, there's another good fact. Sean goes to Shoreline High School. First of all, remember that we students are all blank. We moan, we drool, we take dumps in our pants, we smack ourselves upside our own heads, and we take headlong swan dives into the floor. We eat dirt and eraser dust and hunks of old crayons and chalk. Anything, actually, that we can get into our mouths. Those of us who can walk into walls and doors and one another. Those of us who can't walk just sit around eyeing all day long. Teachers call this vocalization. Okay, let's add that to our vocab word. Vocalization is when you make sounds. And when you've got half of the dozen blank teenage vocalizers all awing at once, the noise is pretty unbelievable. In order to qualify to be in our class, you have to demonstrate a lack of continence. And continence means being able to not go to the bathroom on yourself, okay? Meaning you can't control your expulsion emulsions. In other words, you're too messed up to know how to use the bathroom on your own. The smells in the rooms are pretty amazing. Lysol meets the pig pens and beyond Thunderdome. I'm pretty sure that I'm the only secret genius in our group. And that's a good fact you can add also, that Sean believes he's the secret genius. And then what are some questions that you have? Good readers always say, okay, what's the new stuff that I know? And what do I want to know? So, are there any other secret geniuses? That's a question we could add. Does William like Becky? That's a question you could ask. Is Mrs. Hare a good teacher? That's another question you could ask. I think I'm better than the other blanks. Maybe I sound cruel to talk about us this way, that I do. Well, I absolutely don't think I'm better. I don't think there's some kind of retard ranking, with me on top and all the little stupids below me. I use the word blank the way that I use any word or words. Dolphin, racehorse, sandwich, sidewalk, and apple. Is a dolphin better than a racehorse? A sandwich better than a sidewalk? An apple better than a whatever? Words just stand for the things they are and for what people mean them to stand for. A blank is not a normal person. Putting us in a ball cap and Reebok high tops and teaching us to connect bolt A to connect into nut B and to count back change and to stack plastic covered packages of pork chops. None of these things will make us normal. Making us try to copy normal people's values, habits, hobbies, and traits will not change the fact that we retards are not normal folks. We are different. I call my classmates retards because that's the word people use when they look at us. Retard means slow, but it's also a word used for a whole class of human beings who are only slow because normal people try to make everybody do things in the same way and at the same pace. We retards are retards only because normal people call us that. I actually enjoy the weird irony of the fact that I'm considered the dumbest kid in my blank class. Most of the others can talk a little, some walk a little, and all but me communicate at least a little bit. One guy, Jimmy, walks around saying honey all the time, and several kids are able to ask for cookies. Another guy, Alan, constantly grabs his and says winky over and over. Our classroom looks like a torture chamber or a weirdo's playpen. Of course, there's all the useless standard school crap. Pictures of presidents, big alphabet letters, maps, a chalkboard, a closet, a Kleenex box. But you look a little closer and you can't help but notice the number of leather straps, an odd rack-looking wooden contraption, soft cords used to hold us kids in place, and some beanbag chairs, a large couch mysteriously stained, and a wide variety of bizarre objects used for educational purposes. My school, and darn proud of it. Fight on, you mighty Spartans. Fight on. Rah, rah, rah. I was having a pretty good morning yesterday until my dad showed up with a video cameraman from Channel 7, the local PBS station. Although I'm sure that my dad would have preferred to talk with Becky, he walked into the room and over to Mrs. Hare. He introduced himself and they chatted. It looked like Mrs. Hare had been expecting them. She smiled and he smiled, and my classmates and I drooled. The tall cameraman guy with a beard who had come in with Dad began setting up his video camera. Dad glanced around the room and then started a little testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3, routine in his microphone. He walked over to me and patted my head and then bent over and kissed my cheek. Is that where you want to shoot? The cameraman asked. Sure, Dad answered. Is our sound right? The cameraman asked. Yep, my dad answered. We're rolling. The cameraman said, okay, Dad said, and when he took a deep breath, hello, he said, holding the microphone in front of him and looking straight into the camera. I'm Sydney McDaniel, and this is my son, Sean. Sean is profoundly developmentally disabled. I'm here with him today at his school. You might not be aware of it, but your tax dollars to the tune of $35,000 a year in services, staffing, and special equipment, and a wide variety of educational expenses are used to support each and every uneducable child, like Sean, in programs designed to educate the uneducable. That's $35,000 per child per year, year in and year out. If educating the uneducable sounds just a little too paradoxical to you, well, that's exactly why we're here today at Shoreline High School. We've come to visit my son and honestly examine just what your money is buying. I sat listening and remembering Dad's words. In the background, I could hear winky, 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 and ah, and honey, honey, honey. And William came into my sight and he looked angry. Dad continued, while none of us would disagree that with the noble intentions of the State Department of Education and the Seattle Public School District that each and every child deserves an education designed to help that child achieve his or her greatest level of accomplishment and potential, the fact is that our schools, your schools, are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, making sure that children who simply cannot learn are being taught. Why do we teach children who cannot learn? Is it really worth the allocation of resources presently deployed to help a 14-year-old kid master tying his shoes and spelling cat, when such tasks require hundreds and hundreds of hours of individual teacher time? And even worse, how exactly do we justify the price that we pay in energy and resources for a child like Sean, who will never tie his own shoes or speak or understand the word cat, much less spell it? You have to agree, Dad made some interesting points. Why educate the uneducable? Why even try? Remembering in the eyes of the world, based on proven scientific methods of judging such things, I'm an idiot, a moron, a celery stalk, on track for a career in nuclear physics, a chunk of granite. My classmates aren't exactly on track for careers in nuclear physics or brain surgery either. My dad turned slowly towards me and then gazed back into the camera. If we cannot educate kids because they are uneducable, and we will not simply warehouse them in shoddy group homes or huge impersonal, neglect-prone institutions, doesn't it ask the question, what do we do? I wish I had a simple answer for such questions. We all wish we had simple answers to our complex questions. Yet the truth is, there are no simple answers. There are only complex answers to complex questions. Right there was when my seizure hit. It came on right when my dad and me were in the front of the camera, looking all cozy, lovey, father and son-like. Right then, crackle, 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 swoosh, red light, bluer light, idiot laughter, muscle contractions, slow spin of the room, spirit rising out of the body. Okay, I have a question for you. We mentioned this earlier in the book, but what is that literary device that is used when they use sounds like that, when the author decides to use crackle, 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 swoosh? Can you remember what literary device it is? Earlier in the story, I think they did eek, and it's similar to snap, crackle, pop. I'll give you a minute to think about that. The author is using an onomatopoeia, and that's the literary device, and you might want to try that when you write. You always start what you write with something to kind of draw the reader's interest. Okay, so you might want to try an onomatopoeia when you're writing. Page 46. And while I don't usually remember many details of reality, during seizure times I do remember parts of this one. Dad stopped talking when he heard me laughing, and he turned and looked in my eyes and saw the seizure grabbing me. Of course, I felt happy, and as I always am when a seizure hits, but I caught glimpses of his face and his mood as I drifted away. He looked sad and disappointed because I was having a seizure. I couldn't make out all of what he said, but bits of his speech came through. And what of our children who suffer unbearable pain? Doesn't to love them? If we really love that child, shouldn't we? And if no hope, shouldn't someone end his pain? Sean's worried because Dad's saying end his pain. Is Dad thinking of something? My spirit floated near my dad and me, and I listened as well as I could, trying to pay attention, but in another moment my spirit was unable to resist the temptation to cruise over and nuzzle Becky's and to lick the vanilla cookies in the open bag on Mrs. Hare's desk and to soar out to the playground and play slalom between the posts of the swings and the metal poles of the basketball backboards. I know, I'm irresponsible. I should have tried to stick around and listen to the rest of Dad's PBS special on retards and educableness and appropriate allocation decisions in an era of diminishing funding. I should have stuck around, so sue me. Heck, I'm 14 years old. For some reason, flying, slaloming, and cookie licking and nuzzling just felt like a much better utilization of my resources? When I came back into my body, Dad and the cameraman were already packing up their gear. The show was over. I felt a little bad about missing it all, and then I remembered what my dad had said. End his pain? I heard that phrase not so long ago, the day with the crow. At that time, it had made me nervous, but I tried to forget it. Now hearing it again, as soon I got the picture. In another few moments, Dad walked away toward the door, and as he reached for the door handle, he glanced back over his shoulder one final time, and I happened to be looking directly at him. There was something in his expression that I had never seen before, a look in his eyes that I can't describe. All I know is that I felt a chill, as though a sudden gust of cold air were blowing through the room. End my pain? It made me mad. What right does he have to decide what's best for me? What right does he have to think about ending my pain? He's never even around me. Dad is only talking now. But how long before he does more than just talk? Is Dad really going to end Sean's pain? Does Dad kill Sean? Those are questions you can ask. And then what are some other facts that you know? When you go ahead and jot down some of those questions that you have and some more of those facts. And if you need to, you can pause this. The next thing that I'd like to talk about is on your Socrative, when you're doing that in the morning as your bell ringer, or first thing as your bell ringer, you should be getting more answers right or correct than read now. You've taken it probably at least 7 times. So you should be getting more questions correct. We're talking about point of view. We're talking about autobiography. Those are things that should be familiar, and we'll do a couple of lessons just specifically on that. In writing your autobiography, know that there is a page on the assignment tab in Canvas, and you can go and look at my template. And I wrote that to tell you a little bit about me, but also to kind of illustrate how to do an autobiography. And on one of our Zoom calls, we'll work on just autobiography on the Zoom call. So save up your questions. And if you want to email me questions ahead of time, then I'll know to answer those questions when we do the Zoom call. So just put questions for Zoom call. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, Team Alabama.